Hey everybody, it's Tom, and after a bit of a lull coming back to you, going to take up the question of information again. And the last time we discussed this matter, which I think was 2 videos ago, I parsed the distinction between how we use the term information colloquially and distinguished it from its narrower specification in technical quarters, especially with respect to the domain of the digital, where the concept of information, if I'm going to clothe it in a definition technically, is the measurement of a given code's specification of one actuality slated against an array of broader potentialities. So if you are dealing with a code which is assembled from the English alphabet, which has 26 letters in it, the specification of its relative information relayed is going to be of a particular quantity or bit mass, which is going to be greater than if you're dealing with a code where you have 10 potential symbols contributing to the specification of the message. Now, what's notable about examples like that, by the way, is that it is abstracting from what is implied by the meaning of the message or code thereby identified. Because even if you can enumerate all the letters which constitute the message, that does not begin to speak of the words or the sentences or the paragraphs or the total idea which is relayed by that linguistic assemblage. Now, one might reply that I am working in terms of an example which is to my advantage. However, what I am noting obtains is relevant apart from this specific example. So if we step away from the concept of information as it is designated in the digital sphere to how it is treated, say, for example, in physics, you will encounter the same concern. In fact, it's a somewhat disingenuous movement because you're really asking is how can we take data which pertains to the scrutiny of a physical problem, such as one encounters with fluid dynamics, and reframe it after a fashion which allows us to, if not an actuality in principle, digitize it and thereby automate it. What's happening in both cases is that we are participating in a process of substantive abstraction from the fullness of whatever question, object, matter detains us. We are moving away from a comprehensive entity, to borrow a term from a thinker who has recently been recalled to my mind, Michael Polanyi. We are abstracting from a comprehensive entity and moving down to its constituent parts, losing track of how much is lost in virtue of that movement away from the part to the whole. Information can be specified mathematically in more rigorous terms. In effect, what you land on there is a logarithmic definition, which is constituted more or less in terms of what are the potential contributing terms to the code or message which you are putting together. All right, so much then by way of following up with the treatment in more exact, in an aspirationally more exact way of information technically, as opposed to how the term is used colloquially. Because when we use the term colloquially, we're really just referring to the determination of a quality or an aspect or a facet of some object, person, circumstance, which could be considered something in the neighborhood of a fact. And this more colloquial use of definition, I would say, is not as perilous as the technical, as long as we don't get too hung up on what is considered a fact, which is another category which merits scrutiny, because we certainly have a preoccupation with facts, or a nominal preoccupation with facts in our culture. Though the issues pertaining to that preoccupation have been somewhat camouflaged by the idea that we're living in something like a post-truth era. So, era, whatever. The sort of funny little slip of the tongue there. But that would be to go beyond the scope of this specific relay, which I suppose it is incumbent upon me to tie back what I've said to the broader line of considerations that I've been undertaking in these recent videos, which is a critique of so-called artificial intelligence. And let me just say here, it's not just a question of, well, and the critique there, it's, the point of contact, I think, is relatively transparent, because these softwares, these AIs as they're called, excuse me, or large language models, they are all built on the foundation which I sort of sketched here. And what we can append to this remark is something which is often left out of the discussion, namely that not only is the operation of these softwares predicated upon this technical notion of information that necessarily disaggregates reality as it actually discloses itself to us. Not only is it built upon this fundamentally disintegrating approach to the real, but when we compile or reconstitute what is destroyed in order that it may be subjected to the treatment of these softwares, so that it becomes something on a screen or something to which we listen or what have you, when it is reconstituted, what's crucial to recall is that the meaning, the semantic aspect, the significance of what is there then reconstituted or compiled, is entirely inherited from those who perceive what is reconstituted. In other words, the machine is not actually producing anything substantial. What is substantial is the interpretation of what is regurgitated by the machine. And that is an act which is undertaken entirely by us. We are, if you like, the personal coefficient, to borrow another term of Michael Polanyi, that brings meaning to bear and thereby redeem what arises in our consciousness. However, the discourse, the language of the discourse has obscured this fact and led to a situation in which we are being discouraged from realizing the power and dignity that we have as living beings in this world. We are being encouraged to leave ourselves behind in the interest of some sort of halcyon machine age. But the thing is that the machine is actually worse than death. Because death actually is part of life. It's part of an organic and unfolding process with which we must all reconcile ourselves. The machine is inert, meaningless. It is a fundamentally nihilistic project which wishes to apotheosize the machine. And yet that is exactly with what we are dealing with, the valorization of artificial intelligence, large language models, all the rest of it. Because it's tied up almost inexorably with a vision which could be determined as transhumanist. And I even hesitate to use the word transhumanist because when you bring that label out, their actual vision is so repellent that it almost sounds like I'm creating some sort of a straw man. But that is not what I'm doing here. What I'm pointing to is how the project of the digital epitomizes a trajectory within modernity itself that vacates our relationship to nature, and that we ourselves are part of nature, which I've said in other quarters. So, I think I'll wrap it up there because I'm just sort of drawing the circle out, and I'm going to let you go. And thank you for listening. Hopefully that's been stimulating in a constructive fashion. I think maybe next time around I'm going to scrutinize this notion of the machine. What do I mean by the machine? And I want to interrogate and I want to challenge the notion that there are such things as living machines. I'm going to say that to be a machine and to be alive are incommensurable terms. And we'll revisit that proposition next time. All right. Hope you guys are doing okay. This has been Tom. I'll talk to you soon.